Hello and welcome back. You're watching the Etch Play Weekly Live Show. I'm your host Adam Burt and I'm joined for the final part of the show by Ben Joy. Ben, welcome.
Hello, stranger. How are you?
I know, it's been such a long time since I've got to bust your balls in public on the live show.
It's good to have you back. I look forward to that.
It's good to be back. And you're here to talk about all things esports, or specifically life after esports, and about, I guess, the career paths for people who have made it big in the world of electronic sport. Why don't you get us rolling? Kick us off. What have you brought for us today?
Yep. So I want to talk about this week. Esports is such a huge part of the gaming world. It's estimated to be worth 1.79 billion by the end of next year. I think it's like 1.1 billion this year is what it's expected to be. So it's a huge industry, and obviously along with it comes players and teams, because without them, esports doesn't happen. But we want to talk about what the options are after esports, because it's a very short career. It's estimated that the average retirement age of an esports player is 25. So unfortunately, me and you, we can't even get into it. We've already missed the boat. We're long gone. you more than me, but
wow.
We've missed the boat. So yeah, it's a very short career. So looking at the options that you have once you finish playing, because obviously, as much as everyone would love to retire at 25, it's not necessarily, you're not retiring to enjoy your retirement period. There's still, you've still got a lot of life to lead, and that needs money. So you've got to work.
I really hope that your research isn't just like, get a job, get a job at McDonald's.
This is going to be awkward.
Well,
I'm finished. That's all I brought.
Right.
Once you finish, get a job. Thanks. See you next week, folks.
I guess a good place to start is comparison to real sport, like with a traditional sport, one that you play outdoors and everything. A lot of players also have a short career on the field, but then they maybe transition to coaching or punditry or commentating. Is that something that a lot of esports players do as well?
Yeah, so exactly. You've kind of got two routes to go. Three, and typically the third is not so much. So the third route is, I'll say the first, because the first I'm saying is like you can sail off into the sunset and you can enjoy your retirement if you're one of the top players and you've earned like the top amount you can. I think the top player in the world, I wrote down his name. No tail. Like he's up around 7 million earned. So if you're sensible with your money, you could retire on 7 million. Like you could live the rest of your life on that. The second option is, as you say, is to remain within esports, get a job within esports, and the third option is to go get a job outside of the sport. And it really depends on where you are, like how successful you are. So if you're one of the big name players and you earn a lot of money, you're going to have a bit more credence behind you, so you can typically stay in the sport. And as you said, there's tons of different jobs you can take to remain in esports. You listed off a few which were relevant for esports. You could become a commentator, which is called a shoutcaster in esports. You could become a player manager. You could become an agent for a player, because obviously you've had an agent. You can pick up the ropes. You probably need to do some training, but you can do that. You can become an analyst. That's quite a popular one for when you get out. Obviously, these esports teams, like they operate as very similar to traditional sports. You could become a coach, for example. So it's easy to think from the outside, just playing games is, there's not that much to it. But really, it's really intensive career as a player, and they train not just on the games, but physically. They have mind coaches and analysts who are reviewing the games that you've played, looking for areas you can improve, and so there's avenues there. You could move kind of esports adjacent and become maybe like a journalist, reporting on it. And yes, there's plenty of options. Another game adjacent is you could look to move into like the games industry, maybe outside the esports industry, but the games industry, maybe try and become a tester, or maybe like a social media correspondent, that's not the right word. like a community manager for like a games company, or even like a games team.
Yeah, I was going to ask, is there any examples, and I'm not sure if you have any listed, so don't feel the pressure, but like do esports successes and esports stars do they ever consult with games companies? So games companies will pay them to be like, we want our next game to be an esport. Like it needs to have that quality about it in terms of it being viable as a sport. Is there gigs in kind of consultancy in the games industry, do you think, that people could step into?
I haven't come across any examples of that, but I think absolutely, and I would be surprised if that doesn't happen, because it would be silly not to. These players have such huge influence on the game. They bring so many eyes now. Esports has a huge audience, so it makes sense that there's some conversation going on between the esports players and the teams. Maybe not necessarily the players, but like the team managers and that kind of thing, talking to the games developers, be it the game that they're playing, look to improve it, or as you say, potentially new games where someone wants to get into the esports arena and will need some advice on how to do that. Another avenue which we didn't touch on, which is adjacent, is moving into the world of streaming. You often see some of the big name players move into the world of streaming, like us, for example. Probably one of the biggest is Shroud. Is he made the move from being an esports athlete into being a very successful streamer. But just something to note on that, it seems like it's maybe quite a sensible step and quite a natural step to go from being an esports athlete into streaming, because esports, you're playing games and it's being streamed and people are watching it, and but it's not quite as simple as that. Like if you're going to be a streamer, people aren't coming to just watch you play a game. You're going for entertainment. You have to be charismatic and be entertaining, be an entertainer. Which way, when you're playing on an esports team, your focus is to be playing the game and playing at a high level. You're not, I'm sure there are people who are characters and will play up to audiences in the crowd. But if someone's coming to watch you stream for an hour, 2 hours, like you have to be engaging, and it's a very different skill set. So I don't think it's necessarily for everyone, and it's maybe not quite such a simple step that you make.
Yeah. Do you have any success stories for us? Do you have any people who have retired and then gone on to great things? You mentioned Shroud. Are there others out there that we think we want to highlight?
One which I found particularly interesting, and I'm probably going to say it wrong. I think it's Hai. It's sort of HAI. When they retired 4 years later, they actually became the CEO of Team Radiance. So they took pretty much the highest position you could at that team. So that just kind of shows you the level you can go to. And as I listed off all the jobs before, like there's tons of avenues you can go. Like esports is huge. It's not like be a player or bust. Like there's coaching, there's managing, there's organizing events, commentating, being an agent, being a journalist. There's all kind of things to do. But that's the bright side. If you can stay in the industry, and the problem is, because there is so many players and there are a lot of jobs, but there's only so many jobs to go around. As you see with your more traditional sports, not every ex-player is a pundit or gets a manager job or is working in a back room. Like you've got to go off and move somewhere else. And even though we're talking big money for the top players, like you said, 7 million for No Tail, and looking, I got my numbers from, I wrote it down where I got the source, and I've lost where I wrote it on my esportsearnings.com is where I got this from. Like the top earners, you have to get down to the 95th top earner before you find someone who's not earned $1 million. So there's a lot of people earning a lot of money, but also there's a lot of people not earning enough, as I say, to retire on. I found an article which kind of broke down what the average income for your average player would be in a year, and it's I say only, but it's only $74,000 US dollars. So that's more than enough to live on, but that's not enough to retire on. You couldn't finish at 25 years old, 26 years old, and have enough money to retire on. So it's just the way they broke that down was, on average, a team salary might be $4,000 a month to $48,000 a year, an average prize winning of about 8,300, and then if you do some streaming on the side as well, maybe earning 1,500 a month off that as well. So that's kind of where the 74,000 comes from. But as I say, that's not enough to retire on. And the problem that you sometimes find is, because it's such a young man's game, to sound like an old man, but people get into this at a very young age, and often they'll drop education or leave education, not go into higher education, because they need to put all their focus into being an esports athlete. So then when you finish at 25, if you're not able to stay in the industry within esports, kind of you've not got a lot of qualifications necessarily to fall back on if you've dropped education and you've been solely playing as an esports athlete for maybe 6-7 years.
Yeah.
Your competitiveness in the job market is not to the level of someone who's been working for, say, 6-7 years. So that can be a real problem. And there's a lot of towards the bottom end, there can be a lot of players who are either living off part-time jobs or seeking employment. They haven't found a job yet. So there's a couple of initiatives that have been set up to try and avoid that problem, because it is esports is it's not kind of this thing that just runs and it's nice to be involved like it's $1 billion industry. So kind of the people are taking note of this and looking at how they can improve that and reduce that problem. So in South Korea, Genji, which is an esports company, partnered with the Elite Education Group. They launched the imaginatively named the Genji Elite Sports Academy. And what that is they would teach students in English so that they were learning to speak multiple different languages. At the end, you would get an American high school diploma. They would offer advice on college applications, guidance, give you help with testing, like testing tips and stuff like that, and help you try and get into either get into a college on an esports scholarship, because they do exist. They come in more. They're not as rare as they used to be. They're still not massively prevalent, but it's a thing that exists. Or just help you get into college and progress that way, because esports is a short career. Riot did something similar. They set up a program doing a very similar thing. I don't think they had the accredited qualification, but they were helping people develop their interview skills and helping them with like how to do branding and how to do marketing and PR and how to do media jobs, because they've recognized that it is a short career. Not everyone's going to remain in the industry, and it can be a tough place to be if you're struggling to find a job, you haven't got the qualifications to fall back on. So there's it's easy to be like, so many jobs in esports, everyone's going to get it, everyone's going to be the next Shroud and earn millions by streaming. And if you're great, I mean, a lot of people can earn more from streaming than being an esports player. But yeah, there is the other end of the scale that there is a darker side to it.
Yeah. Well, thanks for doing that investigative reporting, and we appreciate your insight on the show as ever.